Hi, this is Ashish V and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, my namesake Ashish. Ashish has close to 30 years experience in media and entertainment. He is a writer, producer, director and author. He has headed youth films, talent management, brand partnership, digital originals for India's leading film studio Yash Raj Films. Was listed in Age's Creativity 50 in 2016, a list of the top 50 creative minds in the world. Prior to that, he was CEO of MTV India, which was part of Viacom 18. And he has spent 5 years advertising in Lentas. He currently runs a strategy, content, and marketing or shop called Is Special. Autism and inclusion are themes which are very close to his heart. He has recently written a book that introduces kids and adults to neurodiversity and autism, titled Goldie Boy and the Three Apes. And his new book, titled Branded Content Boss, about content marketing, has just hit the stands. Over to you, Ashish. Do share your life journey and your vision for a special StratCon.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you so much for that very, very kind intro. After hearing an introduction like that, I can't wait to hear myself speak. So, बहुत pressure डाल दिया आपने. So, thank you so much. I think you pretty much covered it all. So, I don't know what really I could add, if at all, in the journey. If at all, to give you a background, I started my career, I think, like you mentioned, writing copy. तो एडवर्टाइजिंग में शुरुआत करी थी एंड देन दिस यू विल रिलेट टू दिस one middle class Maharashtrian thing happened saying, "Arey, pagal hai kya? You can't be a writer for a living. You have to get a real job, okay? Ek I service karayi, one of those things." So I did the sensible thing apparently, and I went to business school. I majored in marketing, and still wanted to be close to advertising. Un dino, when I was starting out, which is sometime in '94, good lord, I feel really old when I'm saying that. The only options in creative were advertising. So I went back to advertising, but I moved to Lintas. And I switched gears from creative to strategy and account planning. So I did client servicing account planning for about 5 years at Lintas, and it was a joy. I mean, पूरी foundation वहाँ पे बहुत कड़क हो गई. All the fundamentals of marketing, of positioning, of communication, of content, dealing with creative people, pitching stuff to clients, taking on market research, all of those fundamentals became very, very solid. And advertising was very exciting because you got a great mix to work on a variety of categories. कि आप सवेरे रेफ्रिजरेटर का ऐड बना रहे हो और शाम को गोवा टूरिज्म का बना रहे हो, अगले दिन हम फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज बेच रहे हो, तो फिर परसों आप गाड़ी बेच रहे हो. So that whole understanding of various categories, all of that was fabulous grounding for me. And then MTV came along. The brand was, too exciting, and what it allowed you to do, etc. Those early days of MTV when it was just switching from being a full-fledged Angrezi channel to moving into being Desi. And I found a great fit, and I found it very, very cool. So मैं कूद गया वहाँ पे. I switched from just advertising to taking on marketing, and then I ran marketing over there. And MTV marketing was always fun because पैसे नहीं थे. तो जहाँ पैसे नहीं होते वहाँ जुगाड़ आता है. So we got to do some really cool shit, man. So right from the early MTV Liftman campaigns to creating stuff like Bakra Din, the MTV Music Awards and all of that. And then I took on the programming. I made a lateral shift to take on programming, creative and content. And that's when all these really exciting stuff kind of launched, from Roadies to Splitsvilla, Fully Faltu. My scars are still fresh from all of those shows. But super exciting stuff, and great grounding on understanding youth audiences, and just the sheer excitement of the brand, the fact that you got to work with such scarily talented people. So वो बहुत मजा आया. I spent about 12 years there. I was fortunate to get to work across geographies, to also take on a South Asia role. And we also launched VH1, which was the Angrezi Chota Bhai, which played English music, Western international music. We launched Nickelodeon, which was the kids channel. So I got to work across demographics and profiles. Then colors came into the mix. So really interesting, exciting times. And I took on the P&L responsibility. So I was heading the channel for about 12 years. And a lot of fun. लेकिन वो हमेशा वो अंदर कीड़ा होता है ना कि एक दिन पिक्चर बनाऊंगा. So वैसा एक कीड़ा था. And then I used to do a lot of work across film studios in terms of helping promote and market films, be it through their songs and musics and music videos and interviews and all of that. And Yash Raj Films came along. So that was too exciting an opportunity. So I jumped ship after about 12 years at Viacom, and I set up the youth film studio over there. We produced about 4 or 5 films, where I also got to do a very interesting branded content project, which is India's first branded feature film, which is called मेरे डैड की मारुति. तो ज़्यादातर लोगों को पता नहीं था कि यार इसके पैसे तो मारुति ने दिए, because it was made so smartly, it was so seamlessly done, and it's a really fun film. I'm very very proud of it. So we did about 4 or 5 films, which I produced. I co-wrote a couple of those. I also ran brand partnership, which is across films. So from the bikes in Dhoom, that the deal is brokered by me, to the tractor in Sultan, to the cameras and the laptops in Jab Tak Hai Jaan, to to a Western Union placement in Ek Tha Tiger. So all of those pieces are what I used to do at YRF across the larger films as well. And I used to do talent management over there, which was quite a parallel, like a circus. So you're managing the celebrity endorsements, the external movie deals, the digital and events and all of that for a bunch of really interesting young hot celebrities, very very talented, like your Ranveer Singh to an Anushka Sharma to Pariniti Chopra, Arjun Kapoor, Ayushmann, Bhumi, Vani, etc. And my approach had always had a content lens. It was never a transactional talent management. Okay, ye lo 2 days India territory apparel category and you're done. I always came to the table with a content lens. So even if a brand came to us saying we want to sign up Ranveer Singh, we would always go with a solution saying, "Chalo, मैं इसकी ad भी लिखता हूँ. I will produce the ad for you." So that's where stuff like, if you've seen the Ching's Desi Chinese campaigns, my name is Ranveer Singh. So those are all written and produced by me. So bringing in then the right people like a Rohit Shetty or an Ali Abbas Zafar, these are all people who we worked with very closely. So that kind of came in. So the sum of the parts became bigger than the whole, and it made the journey a lot more exciting. And I think these are those days, 2015, etc. जब forget Netflix and Amazon, तब तो Jio भी launch नहीं हुआ था. But I saw that trend coming of digital content on YouTube starting to really grow internationally, and we've always followed the West in terms of those trends on content. So I decided to, और वो क्या है, फिल्मों में मुझे MTV के पेस की आदत थी कि आप लंच में घटिया जोक क्रैक करते हो और शाम को वो आइडिया टीवी पर है. लेकिन फिल्मों में यार, it's like making a baby. It takes 9 months. I just don't have the patience for that. So I said, yeah, let's bridge that gap with original digital content. So those are the early days of web series. So I also took on the role of driving or creating original digital content. We did a bunch of really fun web series over there. So from Bang Baja Barat with Lakme, to Man's World with the United Nations and the Gates Foundation, to Ladies Room, to Sex Chat with Papu and Papa. And these are shows which have gone on to clock like hundreds of millions of views and really landed well. To the Six Pack Band, which I did with Unilever, which picked up India's first Cannes Grand Prix. Glass Lion, all of that. So all of those pieces happened. And then about 5 years back is when I went independent. And Special is actually a play on special. So Special, which is special needs, and that's like you mentioned, the whole space of neurodiversity is a theme very close to my heart. My son is on the autism spectrum, so वो theme बड़ा resonate करता है. So the reason it's called Special is that any project that we do, irrespective of category or whatever, at the back end, always have a tie-up with special needs. It could be as simple as अगर shoot कर रहे हो तो catering will be from a cloud kitchen run by people with disabilities, or it could be an AD that I hire who's neurodivergent, could be a kid with autism. So it just रात को नींद एक तो better आती है और मजा आता है यार सेट पे, तो वो करते हैं स्पेशल के साथ. And that's essentially the intent. At Special we do all kinds of things. I'm an independent gun for hire, और गिन चुन के लाइफ में 2 चीज़ें सीखी हैं, which is A, storytelling, and B, marketing. तो वो दोनों का खिचड़ी पका के हम लोग we from feature films to music videos to ads to web series to short films to whatever else comes our way. That's what we kind of stitch. Often enough, it's kind of preceded by the base foundational work in terms of brand architecture, what's the broader strat, and then end-to-end delivering the whole creative and content. And it's a modular option. If you want me to get you, if you need a celebrity talent, sure, those are like a text away for me, so I can land that for you. If you also need me to stitch distribution for you, कि चलो वो ले आते हैं कोई platform, वो भी कर लेते हैं, तो वो है. And as independently, then you have a choice of picking who you want to work with or how much you want to take on. So I think the pandemic taught us all that अपनी लाइफ में ज़रूरतें बहुत कम है, और मेरी तो वो फंडामेंटली वो कहते हैं फंडामेंटली नो मैटर व्हाट यू आर और हु यू बिकम एज महाराष्ट्र ऑलवेज बी मिडिल क्लास. तो मेरी तो जरूरत है और भी कम है. आई डोंट स्मोक, आई डोंट ड्रिंक, आई एम वेजिटेरियन, आई एम मैरिड, आई एम लाइक एंड आई एम एंटी सोशल. तो भाई ये इतना काफी है. तो now you have elbow room to be able to find time for yourself, find time for the family when you're independent, and then also find that time to be able to write stuff that you want to do. तो पिछले साल वो किताब लगी तो फिर वो शेर के मुंह खून लग गया कि चलो एक और किताब लिखते हैं. तो फिर वो दूसरी किताब आ गई तो अब वो that kind of lands now. So fun shit, man, and so no complaints and enough to be grateful for.
Very nice, very nice. That's a very wonderful presentation. Ashish, as we discussed, the format of this show is where the guest talks about top 5 areas or in specific domain of expertise. So maybe given your expertise, if you can talk about top 5 trends in branded content, that would be helpful for the audience. Maybe start with what is branded content and then over to you, Ashish.
जरूर. आई मीन ब्रांडेड कंटेंट इज अ मच अब्यूज टर्म और लोगों को लगता है अगर ऐड 30 सेकंड की नहीं और 3 मिनट की होगी तो वो ब्रांडेड कंटेंट है, एंड दैट्स नॉट नेसेसरली ट्रू. इट्स नॉट अ फंक्शन ऑफ लेंथ, यू नो. इफ आई हैड टू काइंड ऑफ लूजली ट्राई एंड डिफाइन, articulate what is branded content, I would say, and today content can be anything, right, from a meme to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. वो सब कुछ content है, alright. ये podcast content है, you know. So any content, I would say that is created by, partnered with, or funded partially or fully by a brand, either to entertain, to inspire, or to educate, with a simple agenda to move strangers to becoming followers, followers to become fans, and fans to become brand advocates. That journey of moving customer action consistently through storytelling that always stays true to the brand voice across formats. So it could be a meme, it could be a podcast like yours, it could be a web series, it could be a full-fledged movie. That, in a nutshell, would be branded content.
Fantastic.
अब ये जरूरी क्यों है आज की तारीख में? Is very simple. अब क्या हुआ आशीष की it's become very difficult to reach people with advertising today. Now here's a crazy statistic, right? This is a much talked about demographic, which is millennials and Gen Z. Everyone's going mad about youth audience, Gen Z, Gen Alpha चालू हो गया है. And fortunately, a large part of my career, thanks to MTV and thanks to youth films, Y films, I've always been working or talking to or communicating to or creating content for this audience. So more than 72% of this audience has ad blockers. आपकी ऐड पहुंचती नहीं उनके तक. अब वो मिलेनियल्स और जेनजी को छोड़ दीजिए, हमारे उम्र के सीनियर सिटीजन लोगों की बात करते हैं. तो हम लोग जो होते हैं, नाउ वी आर पीपल हु आर एसेंशियली हैप्पी टू पे अ प्रीमियम और अ सब्सक्रिप्शन so that you don't have to see an ad. So you subscribe to an OTT platform or whatever, so the ad doesn't reach you only. And for the rest who are neither here or there, you can bypass an entire industry with a skip of a button. So it's become really difficult to reach people through advertising. अब जहाँ पहुँचती है ad, मुझे भरोसा नहीं है. So I don't trust advertising. Now मुझे लगता है यार ये तो पूनम पांडे हो गया, ये झूठ है. और फिर conversations which were never a part of living room conversation, that data is public now, and I'll tell you what I mean. So for instance, आज की तारीख में लोगों को पता है what does Virat Kohli charge for a post on Instagram. In the past, if there was some chocolate adulteration that happened, or Maggie went bad, or the cola had pesticide, you could sign on Mr. Bachchan, and if he says मैंने पिया है ये ठीक है तो मैं मान लूंगा, अरे अमिताभ बच्चन बोल रहा है भाई. आज की तारीख में मुझे अरे इसको तो पैसे मिले, ये तो मतलब कुछ भी बोल लेंगे. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying this with no disrespect to Mr. Bachchan. I love him to death. But so the faith in advertising is gone. One, it's become hard to reach people. Two, trust is gone. And content consumption, on the other hand, has exploded. I mean, here is a crazy statistic, right? Every minute, there's 500 hours of content being uploaded on YouTube alone. अब बाकी सारे platform तो भूल ही जाओ. So by the time we're through with this podcast, probably a few years of content will have gone up. So it's bonkers, and that's just video. And the same amount of consumption is happening on audio. I mean, you look at the Spotify data, podcast data. I mean, you look at your numbers, right? It's where it was probably 2 years back and where it is today, right? You look at book reading has gone up. You look at events and experiences have gone up. So content consumption has exploded. So content in that sense becomes a very powerful tool to embed your brand and deliver your message, because it's bypassing the traditional advertising firewalls. और इससे मुझे entertainment मिल रही है, तो देने से हाँ अच्छा लगे, हाँ तो now where do I classify Coke Studio? It's great music. I'm tripping to Pasuri, I'm tripping to Khalasi. It's a freaking Gujarati song, and I'm like, I'm tripping on it. Of course, I'm married to a Gujarati, so it's cool. But you know what, it's happening worldwide, right? So you're tripping on that, and by the way, there's Coca-Cola bringing that to you, and you're fine with it. So that's where branded content has also become really important to drive your message home in today's times. And that is what, that I guess, can segue into what those 5 trends are.
Great. So also just an observation there, typically there was this, thing wherein people say that, don't interrupt customers, right? Because the biggest challenge or biggest blowback or pushback for advertisement is interruption. You're watching a movie, you're really enjoying it, and bingo, there's an ad, right? So instead of getting a positive vibe about what the value, you kind of start cursing it. But at the same time, if the whole message or the key brand values are presented in a non-intrusive way, which seamlessly come into the into the overall storytelling, and possibly you get a subliminal message about the brand, but you don't complain, right? Like the example
You're
which
absolutely right, Ashiish.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Such a great observation, and it's so true, because what has happened is in the past, choices नहीं थे यार, एक channel था, तो you don't have a choice. वो बीच में वो दूरदर्शन पे sorry for the interruption भी चल रहा है, but you don't have a choice but to wait. You know what I'm saying? So advertising attention was a given.
True.
So inevitably advertising was based on the premise of interruption or disruption.
True.
आज की तारीख में वो option ही नहीं है, because as a consumer, think about it, you're so used to everything being at the tap of a button. मुझे दूध चाहिए, खटाक टैप ब्लिंकिट, मुझे टैक्सी चाहिए, टैप उबर, मुझे मैं अकेला फील कर रहा हूँ, टैप टिंडर, मुझे पिक्चर देखनी है, टैप बुक माई शो, बाहर नहीं जाना, घर पे देखना है, टैप Amazon Prime. Now in that scenario, my time is precious, and you cannot interrupt that. I will choose. So that is where this interruption disruption is no longer ever going to work. And whatever you land with me, and it need not be subtle. At times it could be really hardworking, as long as it's like this, people watch all kinds of things which entertain them or educate them or inspire them. At times it's an ad. I mean, most recently there was this whole conversation about this Ranveer commercial, new one, on the erectile dysfunction and sexual toys, etc., which he invested in. Bold care. अब वो कहाँ है? अब वो इश्तिहार है, क्या है? It's a fun comedy sketch featuring a porn star called Johnny Sins, and it's a blast. Of course, there's all the gurus on LinkedIn talking about like analysis, इसमें क्या मतलब है, deep ये सब. Oh, boss, the consumer is not thinking so much. He's experiencing it as a consumer. Your consumer is first an audience and then a consumer. I think that's really what brands need to understand. And वो interruption के दिन गए, मतलब you're dead if you're still working in that, still attaching those parameters of evaluating your communication. तो लग गई आपकी.
Great, fantastic. So really a nice kind of backgrounded whole branded content concept. So let's start with the trends. So in your view, what's the top trends which one should be aware of?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's always a moving target. So these things keep changing. But as of now, I would say 3 to 5 things which are really kind of visible or trending, so to speak, and are pretty much now here to stay. At the top of the heap is a much used, abused, discussed, debated space of AI. I mean, you cannot ignore it. So I think वो AI हर चीज में घुस रहा है और वो घुसेगा. You don't have a choice but to kind of accept it and use it. Did the invention of a pen versus a pencil make writing better? No. Did a laptop make introduction over a typewriter make it writing better? No. Did digital make film better? No. It made it easier. तो वो fundamental change नहीं होगा, but आसानी होगी. So I think using AI for a bunch of things like research, for generating more options, for definitely in your execution, making it more efficient, definitely in your targeting of your customer and customizing and personalizing stuff. I think there AI is a very, very powerful tool, and there's a bunch of brands that have used AI in a variety of ways, and I can think of 2 or 3 examples over the last few years which I can share. So, for example, a couple of years back, picked up a bunch of awards. If you remember the Shah Rukh Khan category, not just a Diwali ad campaign, right? It was so smartly done. It's so AI is so seamless. Technology is just used to kind of deliver that, but it's customized for every dukan in your community. It lands based on the pin code from which it is being accessed and says, "Acha, ab now Vimal Sari wants to say," or whatever, Prakash Kirana store is using Shah Rukh Khan to deliver messaging. The voice is generated by AI. The lip sync match is generated through AI. All of that, and it's in that particular pin code. So I think it's genius, fabulously. That's one great example at one end. I think the Mondelez guys did that again very smartly with Farhan and Oreo. To generate like that Q&A whole piece, which happened last year, if I remember right. Every year, I think Spotify, etc., also use data at the end of the year and slice and dice, using AI very, very smartly. The whole Spotify Wrapped piece, if you remember, that happens at the end. That's fantastic. Everyone's talking about it. That because music consumption shows you about your personality, and you're happy to share it. So it's nice AI stitching tech, stitching UGC, stitching data to build community. And I think a bunch of people have started doing that. So from Spotify Wrapped to, Facebook used to do that with your ear in a video, to Zomato using data saying, यार इस आदमी ने साल में 5,000 चाय pee. Or here is the guy who ordered 348 biryanis, and there's stuff like that. And I think Blinkit did that then across, Noida ordered the most so-and-so, or this was the most ordered dish, and all of that. So I think that's great examples of how AI can be used to generate content, to customize content, to understand consumer. Will it ever crack great ideas? At this stage, I don't think so. But it's a great, powerful tool to be able to enable you to crack those ideas. So that, I would say, is a very, very hot trend, which you don't have a choice but to accept. There's no point dissing AI, saying, "Arey bakas, ye sab kya kar rahe hain?" Of course, I see that in those really chatbot GPT generated comments that come and those posts on LinkedIn, and it's like, who talks like this? Embrace with those random emojis and kaun likh raha hai, who's this machine? But I think if you're able to use it smartly, I think it's a very powerful tool. So I see that as one of the strongest trends in branded content as number one. Should I continue with more?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that's one very, very powerful, solid trend. The second thing that kind of comes to my mind, Ashish, is, and I'm not surprised at all, I think given the last, especially 4-5 years, I think look at what the world has seen, right? एक साला पैंडेमिक लॉकडाउन किसने सोचा था that you'll be at home, बर्तन घिस रहे हो आप, क्या हो रहा है, all of that stuff that you took for granted, right? So you've seen a crazy pandemic, you've seen lockdowns where you've been at home, not been able to get out, wearing masks in public, you've seen recession, you've seen war, you've seen a ton of layoffs happening across industries. So be it the tech industry, be it the content, OTT space, media space, entertainment space. So in that kind of a very doomsday kind of apocalypse now happening around you, I think humor became a very powerful tool. So I see that as a very, very strong trend. And in fact, there's a very interesting study that Oracle did. They researched this across about 12,500 respondents, and it showed about how over 75% of people are happy to follow a brand if it is funny. So which is why you suddenly start seeing social media content from even brands like a Deloitte or a PwC, which has memes. I'm like, हैं? ये management consultant है या ये chewing gum है? ये क्या हो गया? But you don't have a choice but to bring in that idiom or that language and that humor across your content. So humor has become a very, very powerful tool to be able to drop firewalls, to be able to connect with consumers. And this is happening across categories, even the so-called more serious categories of life insurance. Suddenly you see like, Akshay Kumar dressed as Ravan, or क्या हो रहा है? Like, अबे यार ये तो life insurance बोल रहा है कि मर जाएगा. And in a serious, in a banking category, in financial services, you're starting to see all of that. So humor, I would say, is a very, very solid trend which is here to stay, which you just don't have a choice but to plug in.
And also maybe I'd like to say that it's true even in the B2B space, right? Because earlier we were supposed to be serious, boring. Even that's changing, right? Because again, it's a kind of bigger trend. Just like before the iPhone came, right? Enterprise used to be BlackBerry, And then
Yeah,
people
yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, use a iPhone, it's not an enterprise device, right? So those things are
Correct.
blurry. Very excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah,
what
no, you're absolutely right, Ashish. Because yeah, वो bore करोगे ना कोई, if you know if you make someone snore, they'll never enter your store. I think it's as simple as that. चाहे
exactly?
B2B हो या B2C हो, तो वो तो irrespective of, and I've seen that very powerfully done across. I mean, look at Deloitte. They're not a B2C conversation at all, or any of these heavy hitting, financial services, management consultants. So you don't have a choice but to actually engage and make it entertaining. And humor becomes a very powerful tool to entertain in the environment that we've
Well,
just been through. I would say that's a second solid trend. Uh, the third thing that kind of comes to mind is long form content. I think otherwise ये जो है ना कि यार attention spans बहुत कम है. Of course there are those silly cat videos, and of course I don't know what's the deal with cats and the internet, but go figure, right? ये पता नहीं क्या है, तो बिल्लियाँ देख रहे हैं लोग बिल्लियाँ बन रहे हैं, क्या हो रहा है पता नहीं. But all of besides that attention span and all of those stories that keep hearing, we must understand that this is also an audience that can engage for 12-15 hours non-stop on a game. वो खाना खाना बाथरूम करना भूल जाएंगे लेकिन गेम कर रहे हैं 15 घंटों तक. This is the same audience that can binge watch for 2 weekends non-stop a full new series that drops. So attention is it's not about the length, it's about the strength, and long form has become a very powerful way to also drive and engage customers for longer through longer branded content. And the most recent example that I can think of is Barbie. अब मटेल ने एक पिक्चर बना दी है. इट्स नो लॉन्गर सेलिंग अ डॉल थ्रू अ 30-second commercial. एक 2 घंटे की पिक्चर बनी है which has gone and done $1.4 billion. It's beaten Tom Cruise with Mission Impossible as a franchise in its 7th part to Christopher Nolan with Oppenheimer at the other. It's outdone both those films put together at 1.4 freaking billion, right? So long form has kicked in, and that's just one example. I mean, the branded feature space is something I played in even before the Lego movie in 2012-2013 with Mere Dad Ki Maruti. So that long form piece has come in across formats. So, and we spoke about Coke Studio, for instance, right? So Coke Studio is another example which is kind of longer form. It's a IP, not just singles, but multiple songs stitched across multiple seasons, multiple geographies. Ranveer Singh, the campaign that I spoke about, is not traditional 30-second mummy bhook lagi beta 2 minute kind of commercials. They are all long 5-minute, 6-minute short films which are landing and delivering, by the way, a message about masalas and noodles. तो ये पूरा गाड़ियाँ उड़ रही है, ये सब चीज़ें हो रही है. So long form, I would say, is another space that brands are trying to plug in to keep consumers in for longer. So I would say that's potentially trend 3. Trend 4 that comes to mind is a hybrid of interactivity and UGC. कि वो दिन जैसे वो हम डिसरप्शन की बातें कर रहे थे. I mean, communication was one way. मैं बोलूंगा तुम सुनोगे, and if at all interactivity came in was because you posted it and someone commented on it कि हाँ मजा आया या फिर क्या बकवास है. It's no longer that. I think in the core content itself you have to bring in consumers in terms of engaging in creating. So be it a poll or a quiz or whatever else, or the classic things of dance challenges or make your own cover, or here's the kind of and I'll give you 3 examples of that. One of the most popular iconic UGC campaigns is the iPhone shot on an iPhone campaign. It's global. It's now spawned copycats across across mobile phone categories. What a great version of all of those copycat versions, to photo exhibitions, to displays, across things, right? So that's one great example. The other massive UGC piece that I can think of in a very different category, which is, so to speak, the pharma, wellness, CSR category, which is, if you remember the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah, ice bucket.
Who the hell knew what the hell is ALS? मतलब amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. मैंने कभी सुना नहीं था. अभी ice bucket challenge सबको पता है. एक तरफ ओबामा ठंडा पानी लेके नहा रहा है, बिल गेट्स नहा रहा है, शाहरुख खान नहा रहा है, क्या हो रहा है? Right? I mean, my cousin in freaking बोरीवली, उसको नहाने का पानी नहीं है, वो बाल्टी क्या करते हो भाव? That's the conversation. I'm like, dude, what is happening? So this is stuff that's going on, and they, clocked $244 million. That's the kind of money they raise, which is spectacular through a completely UGC-driven campaign. So that's another example. And the third one, and it's become, so to speak, the entry point for any music that has to break today in the US, right? And it typically breaks through TikTok. So if you remember this Kiki challenge, which was for a song by Drake, you know, लोग चलती गाड़ी में से निकल के नाच रहे, मतलब ये क्या हो रहा है? People are banging into lampposts and there were all kinds of things happening. But that was a very solid, powerful UGC campaign that launched the song. Before the first music video dropped, that song exploded. And it was already a super duper hit. And that trend traveled and that song became popular because of that. So I think that is something that now all brands are plugging into, not just putting an ad out and saying comment. It's like, boss, now you make your version. And they're enabling that. And not just enabling that, encouraging that and pushing for that. कि आप ये पैक के पीछे क्या लिखा है पढ़ के सुनाओ, या फिर जो भी इसका एक हुक स्टेप आप कॉपी करो. And you need not be launching a song or a music. You don't have to be Badshah. You could be Pepsi, and you're doing that.
Got it.
So that's, I would say, a trend for that kind of comes to mind. And if at all, the last and final trend that I talk about is purpose. You know, it's a much abused word कि purpose और चलो यार brand manager को increment मिलना चाहिए, promotion award जीतना है, you know. But I don't think it's that. You know, I always say that there are no global governments, but there are global brands which stretch across borders. And today a brand, maybe you tend to stay away from politics and religion because they're very sensitive territories. But you don't have a choice today but to take a stand or have a point of view on something as a brand. And you have to stand for something. And this is again a very interesting data that came from Wundam and Thompson, very recent report, which an inclusion report or a survey that they did, that 60% of all audiences and 71% of especially Gen Z audiences believe that if a brand does not reflect diversity, equity, inclusion in their communication, they will become irrelevant. And I'm just talking about DEI at one end, and similarly, be it spaces of climate change, be it sustainability, you will have to bring in greater purpose and meaning into your content, into your communication. Otherwise, you're going to be irrelevant. Those days where you could, like, जैसे disrupt करके अब काम नहीं चलेगा, ऐसे ही fun and games में you will have to have greater meaning or purpose behind you. That could be parallel communication that you create, but that's another very important piece that consumers are looking for. So that, I would say, is the fifth. So last but not the least important, I would say it would be up there in a very important trend or a factor that you do need to think about as you think through your branded content plan.
Fantastic. In fact, while it was occurred to me, another way of thinking about this is it is trust at the kind of core, right? Trust which the brand and the consumer connection is kind of being planned to be made, and one should think of it like a fragile glass, right? It is transparent, so you're asking for transparency, but you have just one chance, right? if you break the customers or the users' trust, then that's it, right? Even if you try to mend it. So again, transparency and consistency and storytelling in a non-obtrusive way, I think that's the way to go. Fantastic, Ashish. That was really a great summary. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.